What I'm trying to say is I can't stop thinking about the ones who'll come after us. Those innocents. Those blameless men and women. We're gonna give them knowledge? Like it's a gift?
Ted. We've talked about this before. Apollo has 3,000 plus fail-safe conditions.
It's not a gift, it's a disease. They're the cure, and we're gonna give them the disease. Our disease? No, we can't. And it's not too late. If we're willing to sacrifice.
Almost no character is as central to Horizon Zero Dawn's story as Ted Faro, the main antagonist, who technically never even shows up in the game other than in scenes that happened centuries before present events. As the man responsible for the defining characteristics of the series' world, from its post-apocalyptic nature to the machines that roam it, Ted Faro is obviously a crucial part of Horizon Zero Dawn's story, and will continue to be important as the series moves forward. And so, ahead of Horizon Forbidden West's launch, here we're going to take a look back at Faro's whole story as a reminder of just how much of a role he's had to play in the series' overarching story so far. In the mid-21st century, Ted Faro was, of course, the founder and CEO of robotics company Faro Automated Solutions, or FAS. From its relatively humble beginnings, the company enjoyed moderate success with a number of its initiatives. From personal automated servants and bodyguards to devices such as the Focus. In the 2040s, the company's fortunes changed when it recruited a brilliant young robotics engineer named Dr. Elizabeth Sobek. Using Sobek's work, FAS created what became known as green robots, ultimately succeeding in staving off an environmental crisis that had lasted for about a decade. FAS's popularity and stock skyrocketed as a result, and during these years, with Faro's funding and Sobek's work, the company also worked in secret with the government on Project Firebreak, a fully automated system designed to keep the potentially world-ending activities of the Yellowstone caldera in check. By the late 2040s, however, Faro had set his sights on even bigger things. Under his leadership, FAS began diversifying and de-emphasizing its work in the environmental fields, where it had found so much of its success and recognition, and moved into the military sector, becoming a large-scale manufacturer of military weapons and technologies. Even though Sobek's disapproval of the company's new direction resulted in her quitting and continuing her environmental work on her own, FAS continued to move from strength to strength. By the early 2050s, it was the biggest corporation in the world's largest manufacturer and supplier of automated military platforms, and Faro himself had amassed massive personal wealth on his way to becoming the world's first trillionaire. That success, however, would prove to be short-lived and devastating on a monumental scale, because the very machines that propelled FAS to its world-dominating success would prove to be everyone's undoing. By far the biggest product FAS had under its belt in the military space was its Chariot line of robots. Though they were called peacekeepers, they were essentially heavily armed, fully automated war machines. And in order to make them as attractive to buyers as possible, Faro, who conceived of the machines himself, gave them some formidable traits. The machines, for starters, could self-replicate, while they also had the ability to hack into enemy machines, override them, and bring them under their control. They were also capable of consuming small quantities of biomass as fuel in emergency situations, while crucially, on Faro's insistence, they were built with heavy encryption that would make it nearly impossible to hack into them. Most importantly, he also insisted that they be built without a backdoor access into their network. Things quickly began going wrong when one particular swarm of Faro machines stopped responding to their owner's commands and instead began attacking them. Upon learning of the situation, FAS realized that without a backdoor access into their network, and given the fact that their encryption protocols made them virtually unhackable, the swarm couldn't be remotely shut down either. Sensing how poorly the situation could turn out, a worried Faro contacted his old colleague Elizabeth Sobek, who, in spite of what had become a years-long animosity between them at some point, agreed to take a look at his data and help him out. Though the glitch had begun as just a single swarm of Faro machines, it was quickly getting out of control. Using their ability to self-replicate and hack other machines, the glitched Faro swarm, which would go on to become known as the Faro Plague, had been expanding its numbers rapidly. Even worse, the machines had switched to their emergency functions and were now consuming large quantities of biomass as fuel, which basically meant that they were eating anything and everything that was made of biological material. With all of the information on hand, Sobek arrived at a horrifying conclusion. There was no way to stop the Faro plague. It would take a long time to brute force a deactivation code through the machine's encryption protocols, and that was time that they didn't have. Because, at the rate that their numbers were expanding and at the rate they were consuming the planet's biosphere, all biological material on Earth would be gone within 15 months, leaving the planet completely sterile and destroyed. She did come up with a solution though, not one that would prevent the inevitable apocalypse and quickly stop the machines, but one that could take a more long-term view. She called it Project Zero Dawn, an ambitious network of artificial intelligences, automated manufacturing and storing platforms, underground bunkers, and more. A fully automated central AI called Gaia and several of its sub-functions would be created to keep chipping away at the Faro plague's encryption long after all life on Earth had perished. And after eventually brute forcing the deactivation codes and shutting off the machines, the AI would then begin terraforming the planet to make it habitable again, before reintroducing life in all forms through preserved genetic stock. Faro himself was shocked at the audacity of Sobek's plan, but when she threatened to reveal to the entire world that he was responsible for the Faro plague, he agreed to fund the project entirely out of his own pocket. Ultimately, Project Zero Dawn was successful, though Faro did manage to screw it up in one very important way. One of Gaia's sub-functions was Apollo, which was responsible for archiving a massive repository of human history and culture, which would then be used to teach future human generations everything about the world and its history before the Faro plague. Faro, however, had different plans. By this time, his guilt and trauma had unhinged him, and believing that knowledge of the old world would only lead to future human generations making the same dreadful mistakes as their predecessors, Faro destroyed Apollo and killed the people responsible for overseeing it. It's unknown at this point what ultimately became of Ted Faro. While the world was being destroyed by his peacekeeping machines, he was in one of his underground bunkers, and it was from there that he, through still unknown means, got hold of a security clearance above even Sobek's level that allowed him to destroy Apollo. Presumably, he lived out the rest of his life in his bunker, but there are, of course, several questions that might still be answered. Perhaps he got up to some other stuff before he died that we'll find out about in Horizon Forbidden West. Perhaps we'll learn about how he got that security clearance, and if that will have any bearing on the larger story. Either way, with Horizon Forbidden West's launch right around the corner, we're not going to have to wait too long to find out. And that brings us to the end of the video. A quick request, we upload new videos every single day, and if you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing. It really helps us out. Also, don't forget to enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon so that you can receive daily video updates. Thanks for watching.